At the arrow-throwing banquet, Shi Jian, to vent for his concubine-born younger sister, threw arrows at my hair while blindfolded. I was scared out of my wits, but he only coldly dropped a line. "If you bully Jingsu again, don't even think about me marrying you." After hearing his words, I no longer felt jealous because he was close to his concubine-born sister, nor did I inquire about his whereabouts. Daily, whatever nice things I got, I no longer eagerly sent them to the Shi family like before. But Shi Jian uncharacteristically came looking for me, asking, "We're about to discuss marriage arrangements. Are you still mad at me?" I shook my head. I didn't tell him that after the fright that day, Mother had already found me a new husband with an extremely strong birth chart. Brings fortune to his wife and wealth too, truly satisfying. Spring outing. Apricot blossoms filling the air above our heads. Nowadays people's banquet entertainment was just those few things. Double six chess took too long. Tiger pounce wasn't quite proper. Only arrow throwing was most suitable. As soon as I entered the banquet, I eagerly searched for Shi Jian's figure, but I found him standing under the shade of a tree, like the bright sun and moon entering one's embrace, slightly bowing his head, not knowing what he was listening to his concubine-born sister say. I stared for a long while, never seeing him show the slightest bit of impatience. Instead, his eyes were brimming with smiles. Suppressing the sour feeling rising in my heart, I anxiously ran over and softly called out, "Brother Ayan." Seeing me, the smile in Shi Jian's eyes vanished completely, and he nodded with a faint response. The concubine-born younger sister beside him said in surprise, "Elder sister came over because you are also interested in classics and history." Before I could speak, Shi Jian let out a scornful laugh. "Who doesn't know she is naturally stupid? Don't make a fool of yourself in public." My face flushed red with embarrassment, and after a long while, I managed to squeeze out from my throat, "A you isn't good at classics and history, but a you is really great at pitchpot. Grandmother said that, as long as you are good at something, you are a jingling and jangling young lady." Shi Jian didn't argue with me. Just then, the Princess Royal finished her tea and took out a jade pendant of excellent quality as a prize, having everyone compete at pitchpot. I thought petty-mindedly that Shi Jian definitely couldn't beat me at this. Because when we were strolling through the lantern fair before, I had taken a liking to a rabbit lantern, and the stall owner said one needed to hit the inner ring of the archery target to take the lantern. At that time, the young man turned his face slightly to the side, merely said his archery wasn't skilled, and then pulled me away directly. Many young gentlemen and ladies stood at the bronze pot, and whenever someone made a throw, they would receive applause. The concubine-born younger sister went up first, threw 10 times, either leaning on the pole or landing upside down, didn't get a single point. The surroundings instantly fell silent, someone muttered quietly, "Being this bad is really rare. I've always been unable to hide my likes and dislikes, covering my mouth, but couldn't help curving my eyes with a smile." My concubine-born sister's eyes immediately reddened, as if she'd suffered a great injustice, biting her lip as she lifted her skirt and ran off. Seeing this, Shi Jian's face darkened, and he scolded in a low voice, "Chu Xiaoyu, what wrong has Jingju done, that you must make things difficult for her everywhere?" Hearing the dissatisfaction and protectiveness in his tone, I stood there stunned. I didn't even laugh out loud, and that is called making things difficult. I lowered my head and rubbed my eyes, stubbornly, ignoring him out of spite, picking up arrows to play pitchpot. I'll show him that a you is not some foolish young lady. 9 hits out of 10 throws. An excellent result. The young ladies all gathered around, chattering. "Miss Chu is so amazing. Do you have any tips?" Flattered enough to forget my sulking, I raised my head and stumbled through explaining how to position one's hand for easier hits, momentarily forgetting to notice when Shi Jian had walked over there, until an arrow came flying through the air toward me. In that instant, heaven and earth turned gray and white. I widened my eyes, thinking I was about to die, my mind and spirit shattered, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. But that arrow landed in my temple hair, and with only a crisp sound of breaking jade, the jade hairpin Shi Jian had given me in the past, shattered into 2 pieces and disappeared. Still alive. I collapsed to the ground in terror, my vision blurred by a layer of mist, unable to see clearly the scene around me. Before me, at some point, stopped a pair of cloud-patterned, deer leather boots. The man untied the blindfold covering his eyes and swept his gaze over me with an indifferent expression. He only coldly dropped a line. "If you bully Jingsu again, don't even think about me marrying you into the family." The lamps in the Chu residence stayed lit all night. My elderly grandfather took the token and entered the palace to summon the imperial physician. I wanted to comfort Mother, who couldn't stop crying, but found that my body couldn't move at all. The imperial physician took my pulse and said it was a soul loss syndrome, and I should be sent to Huguo Temple to be examined right away. Grandmother made a quick decision and had someone bring a carriage. I have some connection with Master Miao Shan. I'll take you there to seek help right now. Mother wiped her tears and asked the maid who had accompanied me to the banquet with reddened eyes, what exactly happened? The maid said tremblingly that young Master Shi had thrown in the wrong direction during the pitchpot game. Mother immediately became so angry she gritted her teeth. Good. What a Shi Jian. If it weren't for you having feelings for him for so long. Seeing my family in such turmoil over this, I couldn't help but shed silent tears. Liking Shi Jian is too painful. Ayu, don't like him anymore. I first met Shi Jian when I was 6 years old. At that time, father and mother hadn't separated yet. Mother had a difficult labor when giving birth to me, so I was born a bit slow-witted compared to others. I am slow at learning everything, and some servants would secretly curse me as dumb behind my back. Ever since father took a concubine, mother became very cold toward him and focused all her attention on caring for me. But even the most careful planning has its oversights. While playing hide and seek, my young half-sister took advantage of, when no one was paying attention, and pushed me into a wooden cabinet and locked it. I was naturally timid and afraid of the dark, so I curled up in that pitch-black cabinet and cried for a long time. When I was starving, it was Shi Jian, who had come to visit, who opened that cabinet door. The exquisitely featured young man froze for a moment, then reached out his hand to me. "Are you Miss Chen?" I nodded with reddened eyes, feeling that he was brighter than light itself. From that moment on, I became a little tag-along that Shi Jian couldn't shake off. When mother learned I had nearly lost my life, she immediately wanted to send my half-sister away to the countryside estate. But father disagreed, thinking mother was being unreasonable. It was just children playing around. Ayu didn't come to any harm. Did she? Why must you make such a fuss with Jingju? Mother closed her eyes in disappointment. Chen Guanian, when you took my cousin as a concubine, I endured it. When I had a difficult labor, and you were out romancing others, I endured that too, because I didn't want my daughter to be without a father. But now you not only refuse to protect Ayu, you even side with those who harm her. What use are you then? I nestled in mother's arms, watching father's face show astonishment, then fly into a rage. How can you speak of your own husband like that? Later the two parted on bad terms. Mother took the divorce papers and me, and returned to the Chu family. Maternal grandmother had only one daughter in her old age, naturally treasuring her like the apple of her eye, and by extension, I became her precious darling too. My 5 uncles and aunts even went to beat up father to vent mother's anger. From that time on, I became Chuyu. Love is constantly feeling indebted. So in the deep of night, mother would always hold me and say sorry, that she'd caused me to lose a father's love. I refused to accept this, pulling her fingers to gesture. Here Ayu has mother, has maternal grandfather and grandmother, and uncles and aunts and cousins who love me. That is way more worthwhile than one father. But Shi Jian always liked to call me Chu Xiao Yu. I asked him why. Shi Jian raised his eyebrow and said, "Others all call you Ayu. Only I call you Chu Xiao Yu. That makes it different." So I was different to him after all. I happily swung my legs and couldn't help eating 2 more pieces of chestnut cake. Madame Shi and mother were close friends from their maiden days, and our 2 families often visited each other. Ixi Jian must have been instructed, so even though he would occasionally frown impatiently, he would still subconsciously take extra care of me and remember which pastries I liked to eat. When someone called me foolish and stupid, if he heard it, he would rush over and beat them up, scolding fiercely, "Don't you dare talk about her like that!" But fate is unpredictable. After Madame Shi died, he stopped smiling, and his eyes were filled with frost when he looked over. Marquis Shi was about to use family law on him in front of the morning hall. I threw myself in front of him, trembling with fear while reaching out to block. Don't hit Brother Ian. Just hit Ayu instead." Mother sighed, and stepped forward to stop Marquis Shi. I only learned later that Mother had made a verbal marriage agreement with Marquis Shi in exchange for protection for Shi Jian. Marquis Shi was naturally overjoyed. After all, grandfather was a first-rank general who defended the nation. My 5 uncles each held their positions at court, and Mother had long prepared a generous dowry for me. While the Shi family was an old noble house, it had long since declined, but I didn't see any joy in Shi Jian's eyes. He rested his head on my shoulder, beautiful eyes shedding big fat tears, as he said mournfully, "Chu Xiaoyu, you won't leave me, right? Mother is gone, I only have you left." At that time I frantically nodded in agreement. "You won't leave. You will always be here." But now, I am probably going to break that promise. I sat before the compassionate and merciful Buddha statue, smelling the curling incense smoke, when suddenly I thought of that rabbit lantern I couldn't have. Those memories I subconsciously tried to ignore surfaced bit by bit from my mind. That was a few days after the Lantern Festival. It was carried in my concubine sister's hand, swaying back and forth in the wind, and my heart followed along in panic. But my concubine sister smiled cheerfully, her tone smug. She said, "Elder sister, I truly pity you." My soul loss condition was cured. Half a month later, Master Miaoshan chanted sutras and struck the wooden fish day and night, and had me recognize the 1,000-year-old tree in the temple as my godmother, saying it would keep me safe. But I felt it wasn't very useful, because I seemed to have developed a new ailment. Whenever I thought of Shi Jian and that arrow that flew over, my heart would ache in waves. When it hurt the most, I'd curl up on the ground and roll around, crying for Mother until my voice went hoarse, but it wouldn't stop. Mother was so anxious her face turned pale. She brought in imperial physicians to examine me, and they said it was heartache again. She understood where my heart's knot lay, and immediately wanted to go to the Shi family to bring Shi Jian over. "Good baby. As long as you are well, Mother is willing to do anything." I shook my head at her, forcing out a smile uglier than crying. Mother Ayu has her pride. Ayu doesn't want to like him. Master Miaoshan came to see me and made a diagnosis. Someone is bringing misfortune to the young benefactor. As for who was bringing the misfortune, that was quite obvious. So every time I thought of Shi Jian and felt the pain in my heart, I no longer told myself he had his reasons. Instead, I took out brush, ink, paper, and inkstone, writing down line by line those overlooked memories. Like how he once made a bet with his classmates, wagering whether I would climb to the treetop to get that swallow kite for him with just one word. The sky was clear, the lake was blue, and after Ayu retrieved the kite, she fell into the mud, utterly disheveled. Or like how he got angry with me over his concubine-born sister and drove me off the carriage in the rain, causing me to burn with fever for 3 days and nights before recovering. By the time I finished writing, the paper ran out and my strange illness was also cured. From spring to autumn, I used brush and ink as my blade, finally carving out that rotten flesh that had grown in my heart for years. And Master Miaoshan also sent over the final prescription. Young benefactor's birth chart is light, easily losing her soul when frightened. If you wish for stability, it is best to find a gentleman with an extremely heavy birth chart to match. I saw Mother secretly slip gold into the master's sleeve, then ask how Shi Jian's birth chart was. Master Miaosan stroked his beard and said with righteous severity, "This person has the greedy wolf fate. Born with a malevolent star, everyone around him will be harmed. Then how can we find a gentleman with an extremely heavy 8 characters?" Mother looked at me, her brows knitted with worry. "As long as my child is safe, this believer is willing to donate lamp oil and gild a golden statue." Amitabha. The master recited a Buddhist verse, his brows kind and eyes gentle, smiling warmly, as he said to the plump little novice monk beside him, "Go, summon Benefactor Lin." I secretly shifted my body, curiously picked up the wooden fish to tap it, and curiously asked, "Who is Benefactor Lin?" until a thin and slender figure with his back to the light slowly approached. The person wore a green robe, like green bamboo, standing upright after rain, with sharp eyes and brows. Only his handsome face still carried a trace of sickly pallor. The first thing I noticed was the red mole at the corner of his eye, like a dot of cinnabar stamped by the divine, with autumn water for spirit and jade for bone. Lin Qingyan called out to the abbot, his gaze pausing on me with a moment of surprise. "Miss Ayu." I also hadn't expected that the gentleman with extremely heavy 8 characters mentioned by the master would turn out to be that very classmate Shijian despised most. I saw Shijian again on the second day after returning home. A patch of apricot leaf yellow at the horizon's edge. I set up my little clay stove to brew green plum wine, clumsily stitching together a sachet while stuffing it with withered branches that had fallen from my godmother's body. The sachets are for my elders, and for my brothers and sisters too, to bless them with safety and peace. Suddenly I heard that someone from the Shi family had come, and I froze for a moment, until a servant woman came to summon me to the front hall. From afar, I could already hear a burst of hearty, bold laughter. Old General, I am already preparing to establish Yanner as heir apparent, so this marriage between our two families, shouldn't we put it on the agenda? It was the Marquis Shi. His appearance was 6 parts similar to Shi Jian's, with a pair of phoenix eyes flashing with shrewd light. And Shi Jian stood on the shadowed side, even more gaunt than before, lips pressed tightly together without a word, the mockery in his eyes growing thicker. Those familiar with him would know at a glance that this was an extremely resistant posture. That day after I was frightened, Mother went to the Shi family at once to demand justice. But unexpectedly, the Marquis Shi had already ordered someone to beat Shi Jian to within an inch of his life, and declared that if the Chu family wasn't satisfied, they could beat him until they were satisfied. Even if he died, it didn't matter, as long as it didn't affect the relationship between the two families. Over these years, relying on his connection with the Chu family, the Marquis Shi had finally climbed his way to a military position with real power. For most men, whether it is a beloved or their offspring, both must rank behind power and influence. Not to mention, Lord Shi didn't care about him at all. If it weren't for this, it wouldn't be possible to easily let the Shi family come calling. I sighed inwardly and stepped forward to pay respects to the elders. When Shi Jian saw me arrive, those indifferent eyes finally showed a ripple of emotion, but quickly returned to calm. Grandfather lifted his teacup and took a light sip, saying cheerfully, "Dear nephew, as for the youngsters' matters, why not let them decide for themselves?" Lord Shi's expression stiffened for a moment, but this is a matter of parental orders and matchmakers' words. Yours mother thinks the same way. I looked at grandfather's worried gaze and said softly to the man, "Young Master Shi, could we step aside to the garden to talk?" In an instant, Shi Jian's brows furrowed tightly. The long corridor seemed to have no end. I was considering how to say that the verbal marriage agreement needn't count, when I suddenly heard the person beside me call out coldly, "Zhu Xiaoyu." I stopped in my tracks and looked up at him. "You never used to call me that way." His gaze fell on my face, as if trying to see something, his tone carrying some confusion and annoyance. Could it be that, even when we're about to discuss marriage, you are still sulking at me? I shook my head. A you is not sulking. Mother said that emotions are precious things, to be saved for those who matter. Shi Jian pressed his lips together, rarely lowering his voice to explain, "That day, I only wanted to teach you a small lesson, to make you stop bullying Jingsu. I didn't really intend to hurt you. If you hadn't mocked her, how would it have come to this? Though I was blindfolded, I aimed carefully. That thorned arrow wasn't sharp, but I will never forget the terror of that moment. And when I see him, I can't help but feel fear." What if? I lowered my head, clutching my sleeves tightly, my throat feeling half blocked. What if I had made a different move that day? What if my face had been injured? Or even if I had lost my life? Si Jian instinctively denied. Impossible. Nothing is impossible. I closed my eyes and sighed. You just don't care. You've always thought I was domineering and willful, while Chen Jingsu was delicate and pitiful. Si Jian was left speechless, opening his mouth but unable to utter any rebuttal. If he had paid a bit more attention, he would have known I was just prone to jealousy and never made things difficult for other women. In your eyes, the foolish one is always a you, and the one at fault is always a you. The surroundings remained silent for a long while. Only then did the man reach out to grasp my wrist, saying hoarsely, "Even if your face were injured, I would still marry you. If you lost your life, I would accompany you to the underworld. Besides, didn't it turn out fine in the end?" He probably didn't understand, and when he said this, there was still some grievance in his tone. If it were before, hearing these words, I would have been so happy that I wouldn't care about anything else. But at this moment, no matter how hard I racked my brain, I couldn't figure out what he had to feel aggrieved about. The one who nearly lost their life wasn't him. The one who was frightened wasn't him. And the one in utter terror certainly wasn't him either. I pried open those slender fingers. Bit by bit. My heart had already regained its calm, and I softly interrupted him. But now, a you no longer wants to marry you. I didn't want to live the rest of my days in constant fear and anxiety, praying for a shred of his favor. That would be too unbearable. Besides, Mother has already arranged another husband for me, whose 8 characters are compatible with mine. When Shi Jian heard Chu Yu say she didn't want to marry him, his first reaction was disbelief. His face turned iron blue as he asked, "Do you truly not want to?" He didn't understand why such an utterly trivial matter could make her throw a tantrum until now. The young lady only nodded, then returned to him the mandarin duck pendant from when they had made their verbal marriage agreement in the past. "I wish you a speedy finding of a good match, sir." The rage in Shi Jian's heart grew even fiercer. It was clearly her who followed him around the academy every day asking when they would marry, and now that he had come to discuss the wedding, Chu Yu was still putting on airs. He stared at those clear almond-shaped eyes, took the half of the mandarin duck pendant, and said coldly, "Fine, then don't you regret it." Shi Jian secretly decided that this time when she came to humble herself and coax him as usual, he would give her the cold shoulder for a few more days. Yet somehow, he felt vaguely uneasy in his heart. Half a month passed, and Chu Yu still hadn't come looking for him. Shi Jian frowned and asked his personal servant, "Has anyone bribed you with silver these past few days?" The servant said with a bitter face, "Young master, Miss Chu hasn't come to inquire about your whereabouts for quite some time." This servant saw that the Western shop in the city has stocked many new and interesting things that the manor doesn't have yet. Even the Huzhou inkstone and jade gold paper you regularly use are all gone. You should, perhaps try to coax her a bit. Shi Jian was stunned. Only then did he realize that the things he regularly used had all become much inferior. No need. But after hesitating for a long while, he still decided to have the servant pass along a message. "Just say that your young master hasn't been studying properly lately, and has been getting drunk at pleasure boats all day. No matter how they had been at a standstill before. As long as Chu Yu learned that he was mixing with no good friends and neglecting his studies, she would come charging over angrily to drive them away and scold him. After scolding, her eyes would still be red like a rabbit is. Then she'd say, 'Brother Ah Yan, whether you resent me or scold me, but you've lost your mother, and the Marquis doesn't care for you. So Ah Yu has to.'" Back then, Shi Jian only found it annoying, but now he somewhat missed it. So he rented a pleasure boat and bought Chu Yu's favorite date pastries, waiting from dawn until the moon set. Until the lake water rippled with waves, still no one came to drag him back to the academy. Only a bitter-faced servant came over holding a wooden box, stammering, "Young master, Miss Chu says, if you won't study, you should go find your teacher to discipline you." She also gave this servant these things, saying she is returning old belongings. Shi Jian abruptly stood up, his hands trembling as he opened that wooden box. A paper kite stained with mud, a jade hairpin broken in two, a safety charm strung with red cord. All were things he had given her. After a long while, Shi Jian asked with reddened eyes, "Tell me, has Chu Xiaoyu really stopped wanting me?" When the manager of the Western goods shop came to deliver the account books, I was sitting before the mirror doing my hair, hesitating over which pearl hairpin to wear. Casually taking the account book and flipping through it, I was surprised to find that the shop's income during this period had actually increased by 30%. Not only the Western goods shop, but the other shop's business had also improved considerably. Though my mind is slow, I've always been good at working the abacus, and after checking twice it was indeed so. The steward lifted her head and asked cautiously, "Madam, are we truly not sending anything more to young Master Shi?" Seeing me nod, she suddenly let out a sigh of relief, a hint of joy leaping between her brows. "You don't know, the goods from this return trip are selling so well, there were still customers even after dark. Steward Li, you've worked hard." I cheerfully rewarded her with a silver ingot. Turning around, it suddenly occurred to me, so Lin Qingyan's birth chart really does bring me prosperity. Before this, the business at these shops could only be considered mediocre, and there were even occasional losses. Marriage is a major matter. Mother didn't completely trust Master Miao Shan's words at the time, and privately had people from the Imperial Astronomical Bureau and a Taoist priest calculate it again. The conclusions all indicated that our birth charts were highly compatible. But Mother still hesitated. She worried that I couldn't let go of Shi Jian, and would regret it later. Until I nodded myself, "Mother, young Master Lin is a good person." Of course, most importantly, that face was truly beautiful. 11 during those days at the temple. Lin Qingyan would take me into the water to catch fish, up the mountain to gather mushrooms, and chop bamboo to weave baskets. He never got angry at my slow movements, nor would he scold me for being naturally stupid. Even though he had a pair of sharp, sword-like brows that made him look somewhat unapproachable. In Shi Jian's mouth, he was like a stone in the outhouse, smelly and hard, not smooth at all. Aloof, cold, eccentric, and arrogant, yet this very person would put aside his scholarly dignity, roll up his sleeves to help the academy's elderly gatekeeper, carry buckets and draw water, and help the old women pound and wash clothes. He would also speak up in my defense when other students teased and mocked me. "Have you lot read your sage books all the way down to your toes? Does picking on a young lady give you a sense of accomplishment? You can't even beat me in the autumn examination, so can I call everyone present dumb as pigs too?" The blind of eye can still be saved, but the blind of heart are beyond medicine's cure. And also, I found him rather pitiful. His clothes had been washed until they'd faded white. He wore not a single ornament on his body, and even his handsome face appeared frail and pale from the cold. I easily feel tenderness toward all beautiful things. Master Miao Shan said his family had fallen on hard times, and he was all alone, with nowhere to go when the academy had its 10-day breaks, which was why he lodged at the temple. From time to time, he'd prepare a vegetarian meal in exchange for his tuition money. But no matter how much silver or clothing I offered, Lin Qingyan never accepted any of it. He would only soften the frost and snow in his brows and eyes, bring a thin layer of smile to them, and say with a slight lift at the corner of his lips, "Miss Yu, I appreciate your kind intentions, but I cannot take advantage of your kindness to accept these valuable items and spend them freely." I furrowed my brows anxiously. These aren't valuable at all. They weren't even enough to buy one Huzhou inkstone for Shi Jian. The young man's features were soft, but his voice was very firm. "I cannot accept rewards without merit." He helplessly turned his face to the side, his ear tips slightly reddening as he bit out certain 2 words. "Even if in the future we get married, it should be me competing and scrambling to treat Miss Yu. Well, how could there be any reason to let you spend money?" I froze for a moment, scratching my head somewhat bewildered, a strange emotion surging in my heart. So it turns out, one doesn't need to give much, and aside from blood relatives, there would also be people who want to treat Yu well. After giving away the sewn sachets to those close to me, there happened to be exactly one left. I nervously tucked it into my book bag, hoping it wouldn't be refused. Today is the Qichao festival. Men and women who have mutual affection will arrange to visit the Magpie Bridge in the city together. Lin Qingyan had sent an invitation early on, inviting me to see the Lantern Festival. The hour was still early. With nothing else to do, I went to wait in front of the academy gates first. The bamboo grove in front of the academy rustled, and a commotion came from the corridor. "Brother Shi, you are a talented man. Don't let yourself be manipulated by some little girl. Everyone knows that girl from the Chu family follows you around every day. How could she truly refuse, I'd say? It is nothing more than playing hard to get, advancing by retreating." Several students dressed in blue robes were clustering around a familiar figure, slowly approaching. Shi Jian pushed that person off his shoulder, the gloom between his brows gradually relaxing as his muffled voice reached my ears. "What if it is true?" That person chuckled and said flippantly, "What is this? Our great talent Shi is so handsome and elegant. Are you afraid you won't be able to marry a beautiful bride? The one who should be worried is that silly girl. She is not worthy of you. Just you wait. She'll definitely come looking for you to apologize before long." Oh no. Hearing this, my heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively wanted to turn around and leave. Since the engagement had already been broken off, there shouldn't be any further entanglement. However, it was too late. "Oh, is Miss Chu here looking for someone?" Samoni teasingly winked and nudged, pushing Shi Jian in front of me. The man looked over, a flash of amazement crossing his eyes. though joy had already leapt to the corners of his mouth. He still stubbornly said, "Didn't you say you wished me to find a good match soon? What are you looking for me for this time?" I explained earnestly. "Young Master Shi has misunderstood. Ayu is not here looking for you." "Then what are you doing at the academy?" I curved my eyes with a smile. "Today is the Chichao festival, so naturally, I've come to find my betrothed to go stroll the lantern fair and walk the bridges. So, I'll trouble you all not to block the way." But no one believed me. They burst out laughing together, pointing and gesturing, mocking me for my wild fantasy. Who would fall for an idiot? It is just hard to refuse a childhood friend. Even Shi Jian shook his head helplessly. "Besides me, do you know anyone else here? Chu Xiaoyu. Don't be too pretentious. For the sake of our past friendship, I can go to the Lantern Festival with you. You don't need to make excuses to cover it up." Hearing these demeaning words, I felt angry and was about to have my martial-trained maid go forward and slap them, when suddenly I saw something fly through the air and land accurately on the mouth of the one spouting filth. It was a rag dripping with dirty water. A halo of light tilted down beside me. Sandalwood fragrance swept past my nose, bringing some peace. The newcomer covered his mouth and nose, casually dropping a line, "How vulgar and disgraceful. Brother Ning should go find a physician to treat his foul mouth." Young Master Ning trembled as he flung off the rag, howled, and was about to rush forward desperately. "Surnamed Lin, come here and offer your neck for execution." Fortunately, the others held his waist and hurriedly tried to stop him. Brother Ning, don't be impulsive. The teachers are still watching inside." The young man lowered his eyes and nodded slightly to me, his tone carrying a bit of apology. "Sorry, Miss Ayu, for keeping you waiting." I stared at that face beautiful as jade, and only came back to my senses after a long while, shaking my head vigorously. "Not long at all, not long at all. It is just that running into someone I shouldn't have was a bit unlucky." Shi Jian already detested him, and seeing this scene made him even more furious. Lin Qingyan, "For such insulting behavior, I will definitely report you to the mountain chief." Lin Qingyan didn't even lift his eyelids. "As you wish. I am in the right no matter who you go to." He stepped forward, standing tall in front of me to block those man-eating glares, and said with a half-smile, "All I know is that whoever provokes first is cheap. Miss Ayu is the one Lin fancies. We have already exchanged our birth dates and settled our engagement. Any person with blood in their veins wouldn't just stand by and watch their beloved be slandered and belittled. This is way too direct." I pressed down the warmth surging in my chest, secretly covering my mouth and taking a deep breath, afraid the warmth would slip away. Shi Jian was stunned for a moment, as if only now remembering that all these years he had never defended me in front of his fellow students. "What do you mean by that?" The next second, he raised his head sharply in disbelief, his usually indifferent expression cracking. "Impossible. I don't believe you two would get engaged. Chu Xiaoyu, you deliberately sought him out to spite me, didn't you?" "Think whatever you want," I replied impatiently, puffing up in anger. "Also, Ayu isn't some foolish little lady. If I hear such words again in the future, I'll ask my maternal grandfather to visit each of your families to have a good talk about what is right." Everyone was immediately shocked and alarmed. What General Chu was most famous for wasn't his illustrious military achievements, but rather his fondness for persuading people with reason. His great blade that had slaughtered countless enemies was named Reason, and it specialized in sending off those who refused to comply. Watching the sky gradually darken, I tugged at Lin Qingyan's sleeve and said softly, "Let's go. If we're any later, we won't be able to see the lanterns." The young man's sharp brows and eyes softened slightly. "All right." The evening glow filled the sky. The clouds seemed to be burned orange by flames, leaving only wisps of white from the curling cooking smoke, rising from thousands of households. Quite a few stalls were set up by the Magpie Bridge, selling sugar paintings, candied hawthorn skewers, pinwheels. Even the vendors selling lanterns were also doing business with lantern riddles on the side. I looked around curiously left and right, having the maidservant pay silver for whatever caught my fancy, embodying the principle of never taking anything for free. Lin Qingyan didn't say much, listening attentively the whole way, never interrupting, only giving timely feedback when needed. My stomach was rumbling with hunger, and just as I was about to buy some pastries, the young man beside me suddenly called out hesitantly, "Miss IU, what is wrong?" His usually composed face rarely showed a hint of uncertainty as his hand fumbled in his sleeve, bringing out something he'd been hiding the whole way and presenting it before me. "This is chestnut cake that I made. Would you like to try some? If you don't like it, it is fine. No need to worry about anything else." I suddenly felt playful. If I said I didn't like it, what would you do, young master? He pressed his lips together and said earnestly, "Then what does Miss IU like to eat? I can learn to make anything. If you don't like it this time, perhaps you'll like it next time." Just kidding. I took the bag of chestnut cakes, tore it open, and took a bite, then nodded like a pecking chick. Delicious. I really like it. The sweet and glutinous texture spread between my lips and teeth. I stuffed the sachet I had prepared into his hands, also feeling quite anxious. "I don't know how to embroider. If you find it distasteful, you don't have to wear it. Keeping it at home can also bring peace and safety." Before I could finish speaking, Lin Qingyan solemnly tied it to his belt. "Very good." He raised his hand to wipe away the cake crumbs from the corner of my mouth, but didn't expect me to suddenly turn my face, so his slender fingertip landed on my crimson lips. I froze for a moment. Just as I was about to say something, I saw him quickly retract his finger, as if scalded by fire, his porcelain-like skin taking on a faint blush. "Sorry." The maidservants following beside us were very perceptive and came forward to ease the situation. "My lady, Master Lin, the Lantern Festival ahead is about to start. Would you like to go try for the first prize?" "Let's go." My eyes lit up. "Look at the wooden frame of Fan Tower over there. That immortal maiden lantern at the highest spot. Doesn't it look like it came from Master Cheyenne hand?" The lamplight flickered, and the immortal maiden reflected on the bamboo paper swayed with the wind, as if about to leap out from the lantern and fall into the mortal world. A wine hostess soliciting customers by the roadside smiled coquettishly at me. "Miss has a good eye. This is a special attraction our master sought out, so everyone can feast their eyes on it." Wanting to buy it, I asked aloud, "Would you be willing to part with this lantern? Money is no issue." But Lin Qingyan suddenly tugged at my sleeve, shaking his head helplessly with a face full of resignation. My throat felt dry. Could he also, like Shi Jian, think I am extravagant and spoiled and unreasonable? Just then, a soft voice suddenly came from behind me. "Sister, reeking of money won't get you Master Cheyenne's flower lantern." Chen Jingshu still had that delicate willow-like posture, her slender pale hands holding a rabbit lantern, standing together with Shi Jian, who was emanating a cold aura. The two were apparently out together. In the past, I would have already knocked over the vinegar jar, wishing I could chase them away before I'd be satisfied. But now I remained unmoved, just leaning on my chin, staring over at them longingly. Lin Qingyan sighed. "Do you really want it?" "Actually, it is not that great." I nodded, holding back the bitterness. Ayu wants it. Ayu gets it." Lin Qingyan paused for a moment, then turned to ask the wine lady, "Since it is a prize, how can one win it?" The wine lady pointed to a place on the east side, taking out a wooden plaque to explain, "Today is the Qichao festival. The proprietor hopes to see a few good couples, only 50 wen. You can participate in the couples arrow toss game, and whoever gets the most hits can take home any flower lantern they choose." My eyes widened. So this is where the scheming merchant is. There is only one prize, but there are quite a few young masters and ladies participating in the arrow toss. Seeing me not responding, Chen Jingshu's pretty face nearly couldn't maintain its smile. She held her head high, signaling her maid to pay, then took Shi Jian's long sleeve, her expression forlorn. "Brother Yan, why won't sister acknowledge us anymore? Is it because of Shu'er that she is so upset?" The man stared at me, his cold face showing a mocking smile. "No need to bother. She has her ideal lover with her now. How could she care about passers-by like us?" "You are right." I thought for a moment, nodding my head in full agreement. "I truly don't care about you all anymore now. For people I don't care about, there is no need to be upset." Sijaeon's jaw tightened, intense emotions churning in his eyes, as if saying, "How can you not care?" He seemed to want to say something more, but was interrupted by Chen Jingshu's suddenly rising tone. "Brother Yan, let's hurry and go. If we're any later, the lanterns will be taken away." She glanced at me, concealing vigilance and unease, then looked lightly toward the young man who had returned with the wooden plaque. This young master, you probably don't know, my sister was born stupid, and in the future she might even affect your offspring. You mustn't be deceived. Lin Qingyan's steps paused slightly, only dropping a sentence with calm eyes. Where did this gossipy woman come from? So noisy. PFT, I couldn't help but laugh out loud again. In an instant, all the gloomy emotions lingering in my heart dissipated completely, as refreshing as drinking a cup of plum beverage on a scorching summer day. Previously, the female lead had chased after Shi Jian for so many years, suffering so many grievances, being called stupid, being ignored and shown partiality, being frightened by arrows, yet she had never been protected so directly by anyone. And Lin Qingyan's appearance was like a ray of light, not only seeing through her softness, but also willing to erect a barrier for her, blocking all the malice directed at her from the outside. It wasn't until I stepped onto the pitch-pot platform that I realized I had overlooked a major problem. Can you play? Lin Qingyan lowered his eyes, saying bluntly. Haven't learned yet. That is right. He has no one to rely on, and he is usually busy making a living and studying. It would be normal if he didn't know how, but this two-person arrow toss requires holding the same arrow to throw, making it much harder than playing alone. I scratched my head, feeling slightly worried. The moonlight was hazy, and suddenly a shadow fell before my eyes. Lin Qingyan had somehow moved to stand behind me. He rolled up his sleeves, said in a low voice, "Pardon my offense." Then he gathered my hand and placed his other palm holding the arrow into my palm. His eyes rendered in deep ink were extremely clear. "Miss Ayu, I trust you. You may command me as you wish." I had never been this intimate with a man before, and my ears flushed red in an instant. The places where our skin touched felt burning hot. But I wanted to win. Ayu wanted to win back the lantern that was absent from her youth. Small hand wrapping the big hand. The sound of wind and shallow breathing fell by my ear. Yet, I seemed unaware, only controlling Lin Qingyan's hand, and that arrow, throwing firmly toward the mouth of the bronze pot. Plop except for 2, that fell due to initial awkwardness. All the other 8 hit the mark. I happily bounced twice in place, showing off the results. "Look," the young man hummed in acknowledgement, lowering his eyes to stare at his released palm with a sense of loss. And on the other side, Shi Jian looked at the arrows scattered on the ground that missed the bronze pot, rubbed his brow absent-mindedly and said, "Jingsu, can we change to something else?" It wasn't that he didn't try hard enough. It was that the two of them had absolutely no coordination. Their efforts couldn't work together at all. Hearing this, the woman's eyes reddened again and again. "But sure, just wants this lantern. Brother Yan, can you go and ask elder sister for me? She definitely won't refuse you." It was unclear what kind of thoughts were stirring. As if possessed by a ghost, Shi Jian responded, "All right." He seemed to have found a reason to approach, slowly walking towards me, his gaze falling on my face, that smiled so vibrantly at Lin Qingyan, his eyes obscure to the extreme. After a long while, he finally returned to his usual appearance and spoke indifferently, "Chu Xiaoyu, let Jingsu have this lantern." I was stunned when I heard this unreasonable yet assertive statement. Even my smile froze on my face. "On what grounds?" Shi Jian pressed his lips together, somewhat displeased with my questioning. "Jingsu is your blood sister. What is wrong with looking after her a bit more? Your manor is full of treasures. Surely you are not lacking this one lantern. Why must you be so petty about it?" Having said that, he sighed softly, looking at me as if looking at a child throwing a tantrum. "You've made your scene, so shouldn't you rein in your temper now? As long as you are willing to give the lantern to Jingsu, I can let bygones be bygones regarding the broken engagement, and you finding an outsider to spite me." Lin Qingyan furrowed his brows tightly and stepped forward, wanting to say something, but I raised my hand to stop him. I placed that fairy maiden lantern into Lin Qingyan's arms, lowered my eyes, and asked softly, "I heard that young Master Shi lives in a Tianzi courtyard at the academy, which costs over 100 taels of silver every 10 days with every comfort imaginable. Is that true?" Shi Jian didn't know why I would bring up something unrelated, but still nodded in acknowledgement. "Then that makes things easy." My eyes lit up with starlight as I said eagerly, "You can move out tomorrow and let young Master Lin live there, can't you? His lodging is so small and cramped, it pains a you to see it." A trace of astonishment flashed through Shi Jian's phoenix eyes. Then his face flushed with a thin layer of red from anger. What is he worth? You actually want me to yield for his sake? Don't even think about it. What are you worth? I imitated mother's manner, raising my head haughtily. How dare you be generous with my things at your expense? Whoever a you likes, gets the good things. It is precisely because of wholehearted affection that one can swallow those grievances. Chen Jingsu at the side couldn't help but speak up. Elder sister, aren't your words going a bit too far? Si Jian had never been treated like this by me before. As if only now realizing the seriousness of the situation, his face gradually turned deathly pale. Chu Xiaoyu, His unfinished words were interrupted by sudden chaos. A blaze had somehow ignited on the horizon, spreading along the wooden frames of the flower lanterns. The street was surging with crowds. Summonon was crying out, "My child, has anyone seen my Tianyang? She was taken by thieves." The guards and maids around me immediately surrounded me upon seeing this. "Master, be careful." Lin Qingyan's gaze darkened as he swiftly removed the headband from his forehead and wrapped it around our hands. "Don't be afraid." Even Shi Jian instinctively lunged forward to shield me, gripping my other hand tightly. "The military guards will arrive soon. We can't get separated at a time like this." I froze slightly, as if seeing the figure of the young man from childhood who used to protect me. His kindness toward me was real, and so was his cruelty. Even a fool like Ayu knows that you can't forget those bad things because of this little bit of good. The guards and maids mother assigned to me were all very dedicated. Only after retreating to a safe place did everyone's tense emotions ease slightly, until an unfamiliar round-faced maid said tearfully, my young miss has disappeared." She knelt down and kowtowed to me repeatedly. "Eldest miss, please save my young Miss Chen Jingshu is missing." I recall that among the crowd earlier, there were some shifty-eyed people holding ropes, specifically separating out those young ladies with outstanding appearances. The shrill cries and screams still ring in my ears. I nod, "Get up first." Then I only kept 2 maidservants who knew martial arts, and had the other guards go find soldiers to help. With manpower involved, at dawn, the chaos finally subsided. When Chen Jingshu was found, she was disheveled with messy hair, holding a silver hairpin in her hand, confronting the thieves, no longer showing her weak demeanor. Fortunately, though disheveled, her clothes were still intact. Having only suffered some superficial injuries, her eyes were bloodshot red, and when she saw me, she glared fiercely at me. "Don't think that just because you saved me, I'll be grateful to you." I half squatted down, handed her a handkerchief to wipe her face, and said seriously, "I dislike you, so I don't need your gratitude. I saved people only because I am kind-hearted. You weren't the only one missing. There were many other innocent young ladies too. Quite a few young girls were rescued as well. If they had fallen into the thieves' hands, their fate would be all too predictable." Chen Jingshu was silent for a long while, her gaze sweeping over the uncomfortable-looking Shi Jian, revealing a mocking smile. "I truly envy you. Despite having such an innocent nature, you have a mother who dotes on you, an excellent family background, and ideal suitors to choose from at will. Unlike me, who has to fight for everything, snatch everything." I puffed out my chest, very proud. "That is all what a you deserves. Chen Jingshu." She let out a frustrated breath. "Forget it. Why am I even saying all this to a fool like you? Listen carefully." She stood up, patting the dust off her skirt. "Father will return to the capital soon, and he intends to betroth you to the youngest son of the Jiangnan Governor-General. That young master spends his days visiting brothels and chasing women. I don't have many memories of father. I only remember the scenes of mother secretly crying when I was young." I shook the hand tied together with Lin Qingyan in dissatisfaction. "I already have a fiancé. I won't marry some governor's youngest son." Lin Qingyan heard the deeper meaning in her words and nodded. "Thank you. I will marry Miss Yu as soon as possible." Even though the Chu family held high position and great power under the constraints of filial piety and imperial law with parental orders and matchmakers' words, as long as father was present, my marriage would become uncertain. "Whoever you marry has nothing to do with me." Chen Jingshu turned to leave with her maidservant's support. Her thin back held ramrod straight. "In any case, I don't owe you anything anymore." She knew she didn't have Chuyu's good family background, or a mother who doted on her, and could only rely on scheming to gain a foothold. But after being rescued this time, she finally let go of her obsession. No longer dwelling on Shi Jian's favoritism, no longer envious of Chuyu's good fortune, but frankly acknowledging her own circumstances and repaying what she owed. Chuyu, that description of her thin, weak back held ramrod straight, was truly so vivid, as if one could see her shedding all pretense, looking disheveled yet resolute. And this plot development really maximized the dramatic tension. Chuyu had just found her ideal fiancé Lin Qingyan, yet faced the crisis of her father returning to the capital and possibly interfering with the marriage. Chen Jingsu's reminder wasn't malicious, but rather seemed like a kind of final honesty. She was no longer that concubine, born sister who only knew how to sow discord, but had become an ordinary person who recognized reality and let go of grudges. After returning to the manor, with my family's caring inquiries, I laid out everything my concubine-born sister had said. Grandmother immediately pulled me into her arms with a face full of heartache. Grandmother's precious darling has suffered. She slapped grandfather on the head. You old fool, why didn't you make that brat stay posted away for a few more years? Grandfather laughed sheepishly. We didn't expect he'd get promoted so fast either. Wife, don't be angry anymore. Mother was so angry, she drank several cups of calming tea to soothe her liver fire. If I had known back then, I shouldn't have divorced him. Should have just sent him off to the afterlife with a few sword strikes. Things have come to this. So I'd better put my marriage on the agenda first. Marquis Shi wouldn't give up and brought the matchmaker and Shi Jian to propose again. Dear nephew, my son has made some mistakes, but admitting one's errors and correcting them is the greatest virtue. Even if my Shi family has fallen, we still have a title. Isn't that better than marrying a commoner? This time, there was no resistance in Shi Jian's eyes, only anticipation. Mother politely declined, sorry, but we're honest and proper folk. A woman doesn't marry twice. Marquis Shi, though eager to marry, Lin Qingyan was unwilling to shortchange me, sending chest after chest of dowry gifts into my storeroom. Even the wild geese were live ones he caught with his own hands. Not long after came the imperial examinations. I waited anxiously, and received news that he'd placed third in the palace examination. The servant who'd gone to gather information came running back breathlessly to report, Master, there is good news and bad news. The good news, the future son-in-law's name is on the list. The bad news, the servant closed his eyes with the resignation of one facing death. I heard that the premier's daughter snatched a groom right off the examination list, and she caught our son-in-law. Oh no, in the capital, any woman called a yaun lady is both talented and beautiful. Grandmother quietly gave grandfather a nudge. Old man, can our family outdo the premier? I looked around at grandfather, who was gazing at the sky in silence. My heart sank with a thud. How about we switch to another husband? I wonder if we could invite Master Miaoshan to do a divination and find someone else whose 8 characters would bring me prosperity. Just as my thoughts were wandering, the young man who had returned from parading through the streets on horseback, wearing a jade crown, solemnly stepped forward, lifted his robe and knelt down. His voice, clear as jade stone, rang out firmly. Yan has achieved scholarly honors. I humbly beseech all the elders to allow a you to be betrothed to me. Huh. So my husband wasn't taken away after all. On the wedding day, the sky was tinged with rosy clouds, and amidst the sound of drums and gongs, Mother shed tears with a face full of reluctance. My dear treasure, you still have a long life ahead. Feelings may fade, but certain inherent qualities in a person won't change. So Mother hopes you can find a husband who is fundamentally good, rather than hoping he will always treat you well. If one day he treats you poorly, send someone with a letter, and Mother will bring you back home. I suppressed the bittersweet feeling and secretly stuffed a piece of chestnut cake into my sleeve. Mother, have a bite? Mother's heart full of reluctance was instantly choked back. She turned and walked out of the room, muttering, No, I need to have the servants build a door, so it'll be convenient for you to come back. After all, we're just living in the neighboring estate. I got into the sedan chair and found quite a bit of food stuffed inside, all hidden in inconspicuous places, clearly prepared with care. The wind lifted the curtain. I looked over as if sensing something. Simone, wearing red robes, stood in the distance for a long while. That was the last time I saw Shi Jian. Lin Qingyan had no parents, so the mountain master of the academy sat in the seat of honor during the wedding ceremony. He stroked his white beard and smiled with relief. Yanji, after all, you've been through. You've finally gotten what you wished for. A double entendre. But I didn't understand. I only knew that today. Lin Qingyan looked exceptionally good, probably a bit drunk from the wine ceremony. The shadow cast by his lowered lashes looked like little fans. Even his gaze was hazy and alluring. He called out softly, "Ayu, I've been waiting for this day for so long." I felt my bones go soft, secretly drank some wine, my head all dizzy, watching my dazed expression. He couldn't help but smile, his thin lips pressing down, clumsily conquering the fortress. At some point, a hand had crept under my skirt. "Your husband is still learning, and not very skilled yet. Please be understanding, Ayu." I clenched my teeth, refusing to look at his seductive face. Liar. In the end, tears still spilled out as I whimpered a reminder. The candle flame, is still burning. The young man waved his hand to extinguish it and pulled down the bed curtains. "All right, whatever you say." Stars twinkle outside the window, silently watching over the myriad states of human existence. It was half a year after our marriage that I discovered my husband's secret. Turns out, he was the legendary Mr. Shi Ain. My husband was very skilled at handicrafts. His fingertips were especially nimble. That day he didn't want me to spend money on a lantern, thinking it wasn't worth such a high price. "If you like them, I'll simply make them for you to enjoy whenever you wish." Just as Ayan said, Lin Qingyan treated me extremely well. Besides making lanterns, in his spare time he would also cook, making chestnut cakes that I loved to eat. While his colleagues were still enjoying flower boats, he would rush home right after his shift ended, earning himself a reputation for being henpecked at such a young age. If he were only good to me, I might have to wonder whether I was worthy of it. But he was a good person, so I felt at ease accepting it. With nothing else to do, I opened several more Western-style shops, and unexpectedly ended up earning quite a lot of silver again. When I saw Chen Jingshu again, she was quite destitute, holding jewelry at a pawn shop, asking how much silver it could be pawned for. Seeing me, she nervously lowered her head, using her hair to conceal her face. I didn't step forward to mock her, but walked away as if I hadn't seen her. I heard that. In the end, she still married into the Shi family as she wished. But unfortunately, Shi Jian failed to live up to her expectations. Marquis Shi resented him for losing the marriage alliance with the Chu family, and promptly gave the position of heir to his illegitimate son. Even with the family's wealth, he was extremely stingy. Shi Jian failed the imperial examination, only obtaining a low rank in the 3rd tier, and was sent off to Lingnan to serve as a county magistrate. But all of this has nothing to do with me anymore. Spring was lovely, with willow branches hanging down. I took Lin Qingyan with me to the temple to make offerings to my godmother. Under the ancient tree, I devoutly hung the wish plaque on a branch. "Please bless that all those close to you remain safe and sound." Lin Qingyan stopped writing, and I curiously leaned over to look. "What wish did you make?" I saw the gentle breeze sway lightly, revealing the words on the wooden plaque without reserve. "I only wish for my wife that everything goes smoothly for her, and all her wishes come true." Lin Qingyan's perspective the year I met Ayu. It was an extremely cold winter day. I entered the city with the refugees, so hungry I curled up into a ball by the roadside. There were many people like me, eyes numb, not knowing how many more days we could live. As my consciousness blurred, a tender voice suddenly reached my ears. "Mother, they have no food to eat, how pitiful." I lifted my eyelids to look, and saw a girl with delicate features, sitting in a luxurious carriage, her eyes full of compassion. The beautiful woman beside her casually said, "Then have someone come distribute porridge." The girl blinked. "You can also give them the pastries she can't finish." How miraculous. In this world where food is more precious than human life, there was actually someone willing to give away their rations to let worthless lives survive. I was lucky because I was close by. I survived on the verge of death thanks to that pastry. That year I was 12, and Ayu was 8. Later, I found a way to sell myself to the academy's headmaster as a book attendant. The headmaster initially disagreed. "Where are your parents?" I could only purse my lips and say, "Yan is alone." with nowhere else to go. It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. I was an adopted heir, no one remembered when I was born. My adoptive parents treated me decently at first, until they had their own biological child. Then I became a thorn in their side, occupying the position of eldest son. When the famine came, my worth became half a sack of moldy old rice. The person who bought me wanted to cook and eat me, but I managed to escape. After hearing this, the headmaster sighed and took me in, even letting me study and learn to read alongside the academy students. I had some talent when it came to studying. Relying solely on the headmaster's favor wouldn't do. I still needed enough silver. The other students looked down on my background. Some wanted to bully me, but I fought back. They had families, things they feared, while I had nothing, so I feared nothing. In the dead of night when I dreamed, I thought of her day and night, engraving that face deeply in my heart. But when I saw Ayu again, she had become someone else's fiancé. Though disappointed, I could only endure and watch her chase after Shi Jian, occasionally lending a hand in secret. Yet Shi Jian never cherished this. He treated Ayu coldly, ignored Ayu, utterly detestable, until I heard about what happened at his arrow-throwing banquet. I rushed to Hugo Temple, took out all my savings, and handed them to my old friend Master Miaoshan. I have a wish. Can it be fulfilled? The master put his palms together and asked, "What does the benefactor seek?" I asked what kind of birth date and time would match Ayu. The master calculated with his fingers and recited it. I slapped my thigh and said, "What a coincidence, that is exactly mine." I had a path to follow. Ayu had a suitable husband with matching birth charts. How could this not be a perfect match? After getting married, I also had a home. At home there was Ayu, and also the little cat that Ayu hired. Ayu said I was a good person, so I willingly let myself be bound by that word for life. Xi Jian's perspective, since I became aware, everyone has been telling me, "You must take good care of Chuyu." Even mother gently advised me, "Yanner, Ayu is naturally slow-tempered. You must be more accommodating." This accommodation of mine lasted over 10 years. After mother died, father couldn't wait to legitimize his concubine, and only felt annoyed with me. Only Chu Xiaoyu would protect me. At first, I was grateful, but I don't know when resentment started to grow. Probably when father repeatedly reminded me to remember to please Chu Xiaoyu, that I couldn't offend the Chu family. I tried to push her away, but she was like a sticky piece of gum that I couldn't get rid of no matter what. Over time, I lost my previous cautiousness and squandered her affection without restraint. I no longer cared about her preferences, wouldn't defend her in front of classmates, and even deep down secretly agreed. Right, Chu Xiaoyu is just that stupid, only I can tolerate her. I was like a parasitic vine, drawing nutrients from her to nourish myself. I never thought Chu Xiaoyu would leave, so I didn't notice the light in the little girl's eyes gradually fading. I was even annoyed that she made a fuss with me over Jingsu. I just felt some pity for Jingsu after all. She was similar to me, in an awkward and pitiful situation, unlike Chu Xiaoyu, who had so few worries, until she proposed to break off our engagement. I didn't believe it at first. After all, she'd said things like she'd never talk to me again, at least 10 times if not 100. After a while, when she couldn't stand it anymore, naturally she'd come apologize. But Chu Xiaoyu was a bit strange this time. She actually stopped asking about me, and no longer eagerly brought good things for me to choose from. Without her shadow behind me, I felt uncomfortable everywhere. I could only console myself that perhaps this was just some new trick. How could Chu Xiaoyu possibly leave me? However, the person who married her later was Lin Yan. The sachet I carelessly discarded back then now hangs at someone else's waist, treasured as a precious keepsake. I numbed myself with wine day and night, unable to let go, unable to move on. Yet one day, I woke to find a woman beside me, her clothes completely removed. It was Chen Jingshu. She schemed to ruin my marriage prospects. Only then did I realize that Chu Xiaoyu's grievances were not petty complaints. After the wedding, I berated her for being vicious and repaying kindness with betrayal. The woman combed her long hair, glancing sideways with a cold laugh. "You think you are any better. You are clearly jealous of her, yet you don't even have the guts to admit it." Pathetic and laughable. I violently coughed up blood, eyes burning with rage. "You are talking nonsense." She slowly shook her head, her face still gentle, the words she spoke, like ice picks stabbing into my heart, she said. Shi Jian, you are nothing but a complete and utter wretch who only knows to cherish things after losing them. We stabbed at each other's wounds. On the way to Lingnan, we both died from the poisonous miasma. Before dying, I seemed to see Qiao Yu's smiling face again. She beckoned to me, eyes curved in a smile as she called, Brother Ayan. I closed my eyes, burying all my regrets beneath the earth. To judge a person's heart, one must look at their actions, not their words, Shi Jian once said to Chu Yu. Only I call you Chu Xiao Yu, that makes it different. And when down and out, tearfully said, I only have you. Yet his actions were full of selfishness and indifference for his concubine. Born sister's grievances, he didn't hesitate to frighten Chu Yu with arrows. He enjoyed Chu Yu's devotion, yet never defended her in front of classmates. He even considered Chu Yu's grievances as being petty. Lin Qingyan, though not good with words, demonstrated responsibility and tenderness through his actions, standing up for Chu Yu when she was mocked, quietly accompanying her when she needed it, doing his best to cooperate even though he couldn't play pitch. Pot when she wanted lanterns, proposing marriage at her door, the first moment after passing the imperial exam, firmly choosing her. This reminds us that judging people's hearts can't rely solely on sweet words. Actions are the truest answer. Whether someone truly cares for you depends on their attitude when you are wronged, whether they're willing to make efforts for you, whether they can respect your feelings. Stay away from those who only know how to take and act selfishly, so you can avoid falling into the regret of misplaced trust. I am Faye. See you next time. Remember to leave your review.